Well, look, we are back. Can you believe it? We are back. We finished season 1 a couple months ago, and now it is time for season dose of the Harmony Group podcast. For anybody who's new, I'm Audrey.
I'm Margie.
And we are sisters. We are both doctoral students, and we are educators, and we love to just get together and talk and kind of nerd out on topics of emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, organizational change, adult learning, K-12 education, parenting, the topics go on and on.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we plan them, and sometimes they call to us. I don't know how that happens exactly. Sometimes like that, other times it feels like we hear about things and we think, hey, let's dig into that and talk about that a little bit. And so that's kind of where today's topic came from. We are so glad that you're here and that you've joined us, whether you're listening through Apple Podcasts or through watching us on YouTube. We're glad to have you with us. We are going to dive into the idea today about quiet quitting. Have you heard that term?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I have heard the term. I've seen a couple TikToks. I've seen a couple posts on LinkedIn about quiet quitting, but I have not had a chance to dig into this. So Have you?
So I have. I feel like my feeds recently have been full of these ideas about quiet quitting, mostly people's thoughts about the term. But interestingly, the term came from a TikTok video. A guy posted something about how he was basically done. He was done with the hustle of work, and he was going to just perform his duties. He was just going to come to work, do what he was asked to do, and go home. And he was not going to adopt the hustle and the bustle and the life work imbalance, I guess. He was going to embrace the balance between the two, almost to a point where he was favoring his life over his work. And so I've seen a few people write a little bit about it, and it seems like one of those concepts that I think at its core comes from perhaps a lack of consideration, maybe on the leadership side, or a perceived lack of consideration from the leadership side of an organization. But I wonder, it feels to me as I think about that as a practice, if people that engage in quiet quitting, they go to work, they do their job, they go home, maybe they don't feel like they have leadership they can talk to. Maybe they don't feel like they have leadership that's trustworthy.
Right. I
can imagine, you and I talk a lot about conflict in the workplace, in other places too, but today we're talking about in the workplace. And sometimes that comes from just lack of trust and not feeling like I can say, hey, you seem a little off today, or can I help you with that? And let's see if we can get this done a little bit quicker, or let's get it done so we don't have to stay late. Maybe they don't feel like they have that backup. So I've seen articles that say basically, leaders, you got to pay attention to this. And this is something that people need to do to protect themselves. I've seen articles that talk about, actually, it's kind of a cheater's way out. Like, we should be all in. If we're going to be in a business, this is kind of like quitting, just doing it quietly. So you're either in or you're out, right? That's that side of people's perception of this practice. So I just thought it'd be worth kicking around today and see if you had any thoughts on it, or kind of what you think we could do as leaders if we see those practices, or wonder, maybe we don't know, but we wonder if we see those practices.
Okay, so first off the top of my head, all I have to say is there have been many days in my life where I would like to quietly quit a few jobs. Maybe it's not my 9 to 5. Maybe it's not the bill paying job. Maybe it's the laundry job. I'm just going to quietly quit. I will wash one pair of under drawers, one pair of socks, one pair of pants. That's all you get. So enjoy, don't spill it on anything. And I'm just going to quietly quit doing all the laundry for my family. So I have felt that way before about various and sundry things. I can see some career paths, some jobs really lend itself to this. Yes. Because for years, I think there's some generational issues that are coming up. I think for years, there may be some job descriptions where the people in that job gave their all and gave so much more time than an 8-hour day and weren't getting paid anymore. And who knows the motivation behind that? Maybe it was to do a great job. Maybe it was to impress. Maybe it was, who knows? But now we're getting to people who are, maybe we're getting to a generation that wants to set better boundaries because they saw some older generations not. Right. I think that's really, really interesting.
Well, it's funny. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, do you think it's been around for a while, or do you think it's a new concept? I wondered if it just has a trendy name right now, and or if you felt like it's been something that's been going on for a long time. We just now have, social media and other things that draw attention to it.
So when I was doing classroom teaching, when I was teaching K-12, I noticed that there were some teachers who were there early in the morning and stayed super late. And they did a whole bunch of extra things in addition to whatever their true job description was. And by true, I mean, like if they were a third grade teacher, they were also doing extra clubs and, all this and that. And I wonder if that's one specific career path that seems to be this quiet quitting seems to be big on. What have you seen with that, with just the education field in general?
Yeah. So one of my favorites, I don't really know if he's an author or a school founder or all of the above, but Ron Clark.
I knew it.
He has this book called, I think it's Move Your Bus, or something about a bus. That's terrible that I'm putting this out on the internet, but I think it's Move Your Bus. It's
I'm gonna look it up online. Keep going.
Little red book with yellow writing on the front. Okay. I think it's Move Your Bus, but in that he talks about how there are runners. There are all the way down to walkers, and that really, especially he's talking about in education, but just in general, you have those runners who they are going for it. They are like really, they're the ones you're talking about. They want to start a club. They want to stay after school a little bit and tutor so-and-so. So they do really well. They want to reach out to parents and create not just an email, but a newsletter. And, there's always that so the middle schoolers would call them tryhards, right?
Yes. Or sweaty gamers.
Yes.
They're sweaty.
This is what we're talking about. So, right.
If you don't know that term, don't go to urbandictionary.com, whatever. No. Just message us later. We'll tell you what it means.
Clues. Get some context clues and carry on. So never Urban Dictionary. Why is that ever someone's go-to?
It shouldn't be, man. It'll put you in the therapist's office more than you're already there.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. But anyway, I do think there are a lot of teachers who do that. Yeah. But as an administrator, I say, yay. Like I say, well done. I'm so glad you're all in with me because I'm all in.
Right.
So now to have somebody else all in, I think, oh gosh, that is so great. And sometimes if you have someone who's not all in, you're like, oh, how can I get her to get some school spirit? Or how can I get her to want to share her gifts of whatever with this club, with this group of kids? If you're watching, I'm not talking about you. I can't think of an example, but just generally, do you know what I mean? Like
I do. Yes.
How do we help people who are on the fence or on the edge? How do we pull them in without saying, hey, come give your life to our organization
for no extra pay?
For no extra pay.
Right.
And so I really do get both sides. I like the idea of affirming that, not loyalty, maybe loyalty, that all in kind of a feel.
Well, first I'm going to tell you, well done. It's called Move Your Bus. I looked it
Yes.
up. You
Okay.
did so good.
Yeah.
So
So
proud
good.
of you. Um, second, I'm going to say, um, there are some people who are in a season of their life where they can be all in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is such a good season. For some people, it's when they're young and they've got
Mhm.
energy, and some jaded people, I don't even want to say jaded, that can come off so negative, but some seasoned people may call that idealistic,
Yeah. Yeah.
or they haven't been jaded by the system, but whatever it is,
Right.
often that's the season where to give extra and to be all in, so to speak. And then there's some seasons, and you and I've gone through a couple seasons where we were just tapped out.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Especially when if you've got a whole bunch of family commitments and you feel like you're being torn left and right, there's
Yeah.
going to be seasons of plenty. There's going to be
Mhm.
seasons of little.
Right.
But I would say if you see somebody with a special gift,
Mhm.
let's say you've got an employee and you have seen them doodle and you know that they've got a real artistic talent, then you may be able to find out if that's something they love to do,
Right.
and what you can give them to say, ooh, what's in it for me? This is
Mhm.
what's in it for you. Maybe that would help
Mhm.
draw people in to give a little bit more.
Yeah.
But still respecting the boundaries that they've had to set, because they might have had to set it for mental health reasons.
Absolutely. And I think that's important that we know that and consider more than just they just aren't all in, but there may be a real legit reason. So it's interesting that you say that. Okay, I read this. So Daniel Goleman is
Yes.
we're such fans, right?
Mhm.
So one of the articles I read, I think it was by him, or it was at least on his website. And he talked about how oftentimes it is the really routine, monotonous tasks
Mhm.
that people have to do in their jobs that they feel like could be automated. Like you almost don't need a brain to do them. They're just part of the job. When that is what makes up the bulk of your job, you tend to want to quiet quit. You tend to want to pull back because there's nothing life-giving about it.
Right.
And then when you can get to do just what you just said, when you can be creative and you see a gifting of any kind,
Right.
and you think, oh, you're passionate about, I saw your eyes light up when we talked about this. Can you brainstorm about this and just run with it? That helps them get out of that funk and be like,
Yes.
oh, I'm valued. My gifts are seen. I'm seen as a person. So I thought that was really interesting that you mentioned that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and how can we, if we know that things like a hit of serotonin or a hit of, help me, all the other little brain
Yeah.
happy things,
A
dopamine,
yeah. Supposed to be hormones, but yeah, just
yes,
generally
all
the
the smart people out there,
balance.
just
Yeah.
chime in, help a girl out. It's been a long day for me and my brain is a little off now. But if we know that it feels good to have those little hits of those happy drugs that are in our brain, those chemicals,
Mhm.
how can we give small tasks that they can accomplish where they go, I did it, or some kind of thing that they are attached to draw them in and to help with that connectedness. I think it's really important right now with remote work in the corporate and government contracting side of life. The remote work is growing, both in that people want to do it
Mhm.
and the ability to. And I think it's going to be really important to have some way to strengthen connectedness
Yes.
between employees and employers, especially as that becomes bigger. And maybe maybe all of these things can be intertwined into the same event or the same action that an employer or even a coworker could do.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Gamification, what can we do to
Yes.
reward and,
Oh, I love
make a
game
little
theory.
a little competition out of it. And now, I've got a partner that depends on me. So I bet we better get our sales quota up for the month, or, there are ways. So one of the things I think that a leader can do is to just pay attention.
Yes.
I think a lot of times we have people who are verging on this quiet quitting idea because they're perhaps trust has been breached, perhaps they're just frustrated, perhaps they don't feel fulfilled. And so if a leader will just look around, then maybe there are things they'll see that they can start to look. So all of these things we're talking about, I think are such an easy, not easy, simple, not always easy, but a way to start pulling them away from that precipice of, I'm just going to show up and then come back. But I think sometimes maybe there's just a lack of awareness on the part of the leader. So maybe this little trend, this social media trend, will bring some kind of awareness to leaders that maybe they didn't even think, oh, maybe that's what Mr. Smith's doing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's going on here. And
I would say also find the good in your employers. It's really easy to find the bad, but something that you could do right now, as soon as we stop talking, is observe your employers, or look at what they turn in, and find one good thing that they did and jot that down or say it to them. And right there, you've already done one thing to help draw them in and to connect them to your team. Maybe it may not prevent quiet quitting, but what it may do is improve their feelings towards the place as they continue to work there. Yeah. Who knows what you could do? What's another thing that somebody could do right now?
So I think be curious, yes, we're looking around, but then ask questions. One graphic that I saw about quiet quitting had it like a culture iceberg. Have you ever seen the culture iceberg illustration where it has all of the characteristics on the top, but then it's the 90% or 85% you don't see. And I thought the same thing with quiet quitting. We start to see people withdraw. We start to see people just do the status quo, not contribute in meetings, just get through a meeting. And when we start to see those things, what do we see underneath? Breach of trust, dissatisfied, work-life balance that's off kilter. Perhaps there's just some conflict that's not been addressed. And so that's where people like us, people that can help companies, help organizations think, where do I need to look? What's going on? And how can I help resolve some of these small things before we lose some valuable employees? I think that's important.
Absolutely. You bring up some really good points. This is a fun topic to talk about.
I think so too. I think it's too, because I'll be honest, I have felt like this before in my lifetime, not in my current, and you mentioned even in other places, but I mean, there's these times where you just think nobody sees me. It doesn't really, I only barely matter. Let's just get it done and go. And, it's hard to get a work-life balance. It is. Especially, I feel like, especially for women. I don't know if that's popular to say, but we have kids and families and homes and so do men. And I know that, but there is something about that helper piece of, I don't know what it is. I feel like it's harder for me to separate and keep I feel like my whole life meshes together sometimes. I wish I could compartmentalize better. I've seen funny TikToks about that, or videos about how guys can, when guys get ready for bed, right, they go downstairs and turn the light off. And when women go downstairs and go to bed, they, flip the things to dirty to clean for the dishwasher. They make their lunch and they check on the dog and they do that. I feel like that's my brain.
It is.
So it's hard to keep those things separate. So maybe we just continue to look for ways to communicate, right? Tell our bosses, tell our employees, take a minute. I need a minute. I'm not sure what my role is in this project. Can you help me know how it fits together with something bigger? Or could I try this piece to see what I could do if I design this piece or whatever?
Those are some good points. And I'll give you a term that may fit with what you were describing. I was reading a research study about the amount of emotional labor that women carry.
Yeah.
That we have so much emotional labor that we carry it because we are managing the emotions of our family members. Often we feel like we have to mediate between different members and do things a certain way. I've got one kid that doesn't like the crusts. I've got one kid that wants extra crusts. I've got one person, all of these things. So emotional labor is a really interesting term for that. Maybe we'll dig into that next time.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, it was wonderful to spend time with you again.
I know. We're glad to be back for season 2. I don't know where the season takes us.
I don't know, but it's going to be fun. Oh, it's going to be fun. But we want to know if this is the first time you're joining us or if you are a repeat offender. So put in the comments below or tag us or send us a message. We want to know if you've been around since season 1, give us a 1. If this is your first time with us, this is season 2, just put a number 2 so we know. Anyway, it's great. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, we sure are. And keep sending us notes, messages, if there are thoughts or ideas that you have for podcasts or questions that you have that come up. We love to get that feedback. It's helpful for us as professionals, but also just for new materials. So thank you for sharing those things.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, I'm Audrey.
I'm Margie.
And we hope you have a wonderful, harmonious week.
All right. Bye.